Imagine standing in the heart of a Roman war council. The torches flicker against the cold stone walls. A Legatus, hardened by years of battle, glares across the room at a young, ambitious tribune. Their words are measured, but the tension is thick. One commands legions. The other carries the favor of Rome's elite. The wrong move could shatter an entire campaign. We often think of Rome's military as an unstoppable war machine, disciplined, precise, and unified. But what if I told you that some of its greatest threats didn't come from barbarians or foreign armies, but from within its own chain of command? The battlefield was one thing, but in the command tents, where strategy and survival were debated, rivalries boiled over. Legati, appointed by the emperor, saw themselves as the true leaders of Rome's legions. Tribunes, often young aristocrats, had their own ambitions and political connections. And when these egos clashed, entire legions could be caught in the crossfire. How did these power struggles shape Rome's greatest victories and its most devastating defeats? Were these internal conflicts merely political squabbles, or did they cost the empire wars it could have won? Today, we unravel the hidden battles that raged behind the Roman front lines. In this video, we'll uncover the rivalries between Legati and Tribunes, the secret deals, the betrayals, and the moments where Rome's fate hung in the balance. Not on the battlefield, but in whispered arguments inside command tents. If you love discovering the untold power struggles that shaped history, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Rome was built on ambition, and sometimes ambition was its greatest enemy. The Roman legions were known for their discipline, but beneath that order simmered a power struggle that could tear entire campaigns apart. A Legatus, a seasoned commander handpicked by the emperor, ruled with battlefield experience. Opposing him was the tribune, often a young aristocrat, freshly appointed and eager to prove himself. Their differences weren't just about strategy. They were battles of authority, ambition, and influence. And when these egos clashed, soldiers found themselves caught between obedience and uncertainty. In 14 AD, this divide became dangerously real. In a camp along the Rhine, Lucius Aelius, an outspoken tribune, challenged his legatus, Marcus Flavius, before the assembled legion. Aelius spoke with the confidence of a man who knew Rome's elite stood behind him. Flavius, a veteran of countless battles, dismissed him outright. But the soldiers hesitated. Who deserved their loyalty? The leader who had bled beside them, or the man with the Senate's favor? That hesitation led to something unthinkable. A legion, fractured from within, teetered on the edge of rebellion. But what happened when this struggle wasn't just about command, but survival itself? Rome's greatest victories were not always won by the sharpness of a sword, but by the sharpness of political maneuvering. Military tribunes were not always warriors. They were often young nobles using their ranks as stepping stones to power. The Legatus, hardened by years of war, saw them as inexperienced interlopers. Yet, despite their lack of battlefield wisdom, these tribunes held something more dangerous: political leverage. And when ambition outweighed military judgment, disaster followed. During the Second Punic War, this imbalance proved fatal. Quintus Fabius, a brash tribune, openly defied his legatus during a war council. The commander urged caution, planning to wait for reinforcements. But Fabius, impatient for glory, convinced part of the legion to strike immediately. The result? A devastating ambush. When the survivors limped back to Rome, Fabius did not face the consequences. Instead, he shifted the blame onto the legatus. The experienced general was disgraced, while Fabius, despite his recklessness, ascended in Roman politics. If influence could rewrite history so easily, what else was being shaped by those who never set foot on the battlefield? Disagreements over strategy were dangerous enough, but sometimes the ambitions of Rome's commanders led to outright betrayal. In times of crisis, alliances within the legions were fragile, and a single act of treachery could shift the fate of an empire. No moment exposed this more than the chaos of 69 AD, the infamous year of the four emperors. With Rome's leadership in turmoil, loyalty was a currency traded in the shadows. The Legatus Aulus Caecina found himself serving Emperor Vitellius alongside the ambitious tribune Saturninus. While Caecina publicly swore allegiance to the emperor, Saturninus had other plans. He secretly plotted with Rome's elite to overthrow Vitellius in favor of Vespasian. Saturninus, a master manipulator, persuaded Caecina to betray his oaths and defect. But before Caecina could act, Saturninus moved first. Under the cover of darkness, he had his own commander arrested and executed. By dawn, the legion was forced to swear loyalty to their new ruler. If the fate of armies could be rewritten in a single night, what did that mean for the empire's stability? Every empire falls, not just from external threats, but from conflicts within. The Roman army's greatest strength, its discipline, was repeatedly shattered by personal rivalries. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD was a perfect example. Rome's enemies that day were the Goths, but their true weakness came from their own fractured leadership. Two commanders, Sebastianus and Trajanus, fought not against their foes, but against each other's authority. Their inability to agree on a strategy delayed crucial decisions until it was too late. When the battle began, Rome was not just outmaneuvered, but utterly annihilated. Thousands of Roman soldiers lay dead, including Emperor Valens himself. Historians point to this battle as the beginning of Rome's downfall. But how many other defeats were the result of infighting rather than military failure? And if power struggles could doom an empire as mighty as Rome, what does that say about leadership, then and now? Rome's greatest defeats weren't always on the battlefield. They were often the result of power struggles within. But what happened to the men who survived these battles? The soldiers who fought for Rome, bled for Rome, only to be abandoned when they were no longer useful? Their story is one of betrayal, rebellion, and the high cost of loyalty. Click here to uncover the tragic fate of Rome's forgotten veterans.